Have you ever wondered why you're so tired? Really tired. Not from the work or the traffic or the endless messages, but from something deeper. That invisible pressure inside your chest. The mental grip you're constantly holding, trying to make life go exactly the way you planned. Not just the outside stuff, money, time, responsibilities, but the inside too. The exhausting need to always know what's next, to label what you feel, to define who you are, where you're going, and what it all means. You've been taught that certainty equals control, and control equals peace. But what if that's the biggest lie? What if peace isn't in knowing, but in not needing to know? You may be stuck in a loop where every uncertain moment feels like a threat, where you try to predict the unpredictable, where any lack of clarity sends you spiraling into anxiety. But what if uncertainty isn't the problem? What if the real issue is your resistance to it? There was a man, Michel de Montaigne, who lived centuries ago but understood this truth better than most people alive today. While others searched for answers to fit inside a perfect system, he turned inward. He questioned himself, observed his contradictions, and wrote it all down with fearless honesty. Not to teach answers, but to show how freeing it is to live without them. In this video, I want to invite you to do the same, to stop running from uncertainty and start walking with it. Because the moment you surrender to what you can't control, something inside shifts. And it all begins with one phrase, whispered in silence. I don't know. And that's okay. 1. The hidden weight of control. He doesn't even realize it, but every day he wakes up already carrying a weight he can't name. It's not the job. It's not the relationship. It's the silent demand to make everything go according to plan, to hold the steering wheel of life so tightly that his own knuckles turn white. This pressure isn't obvious, but it's always there. You see it when he checks his phone every 5 minutes, needing to be on top of things, or when one minor change in the schedule ruins his whole day. It's not because life is chaotic, it's because deep down he believes he has to be in control of it all. The mind confuses peace with predictability, and that's where the anxiety begins. Uncertainty scares him, not because it's dangerous, but because it reminds him that he's not in charge. And that idea terrifies the ego. The deeper truth is, what exhausts most men isn't the hustle itself. It's the internal war to dominate what cannot be dominated. Control over emotions, control over time, control over people. But here's a quick test. Can you control your next thought? Now here's the real twist. When he tries to control life, he becomes smaller than life. His world shrinks down to to-do lists, outcomes, and expectations. But there's another way to live. A quieter, freer way, and it begins when he starts to question why he's so afraid to loosen his grip. 2. The illusion of certainty. He was taught that if he just figured everything out, his purpose, his 5-year plan, his identity, he'd finally feel at peace. But certainty is a clever mask. It gives the illusion of safety while quietly building the walls of a mental prison. When he clings to fixed ideas about who he is and where he's going, life stops flowing and starts suffocating. This need for certainty shows up in small ways. He overthinks every decision. He avoids risks that could make him grow. He sticks to familiar routines, not because they work, but because they're predictable. The world changes, people evolve, desires shift. But when a man identifies too strongly with who he thinks he should be, he resists that natural movement. And the more he resists, the more disconnected he feels. That's when anxiety creeps in, not as a monster under the bed, but as a soft whisper saying, "You're falling behind." But what if the real problem isn't uncertainty at all? What if it's the belief that certainty is necessary? That without a clear plan, he'll fall apart? That without a fixed identity, he won't be enough? Maybe it's time to question the story he's been living and meet a part of himself he's never seen. 3. Montaigne's gentle rebellion. While the world was busy building systems, philosophies, and rigid rules, Montaigne sat alone in his library, listening to the chaos within. He didn't pretend to have it all figured out. He didn't write to impress. He simply observed his own mind, its fears, its contradictions, its cravings, and dared to be honest about what he found. That was his rebellion, radical self-awareness in a world addicted to appearances. Most people search for truth outside themselves, in books, in gurus, in titles. But Montaigne flipped the mirror inward. He questioned his thoughts the same way a sculptor questions the stone. What is this belief made of? Where did it come from? Does it still belong here? Instead of building a tower of knowledge, he carved space for humility, a rare thing among men. He changed his mind often and saw that not as inconsistency, but as evolution. While others feared being wrong, he found peace in not needing to be right. His life became a conversation, not a lecture. And in that openness, he found something most men miss: inner peace born from honest inquiry. He wasn't interested in controlling his image, only in knowing himself. There's something deeply powerful in a man who no longer fears being seen as unsure. He becomes more than his beliefs, more than his past. And through this path of surrender, a strange freedom starts to appear, one that doesn't look like dominance or clarity, but like stillness in the middle of the storm. 4. I don't know is freedom. There's a moment, quiet and strange, when a man finally admits to himself, I don't know. Not out of defeat, but out of release. That phrase, so often avoided, opens a door that certainty could never find. In that space, the mind softens. The pressure to be right dissolves. And for the first time in a long time, he feels his chest expand like someone just lifted a hidden weight off his back. He was raised to believe that strength comes from always having an answer, that knowing is power, that confidence means certainty. But what if real confidence is the opposite? What if the man who can say, I don't know, with calm in his voice, is actually the one who's free? He's no longer performing. He's no longer pretending to be a rock in a world that keeps shifting under his feet. Think about it. Some of the wisest men in history repeated that same phrase like a mantra. Socrates, Montaigne, even modern leaders who've mastered emotional intelligence. They weren't afraid of not knowing because they had found something deeper, trust. Not in answers, but in awareness. They understood that the path to truth is often walked in silence, not statements. And here's a practical shift. Next time you don't know, try not filling the gap. Just pause. Let the question hang. Notice how the mind scrambles for control, how it panics in uncertainty. Then breathe. Let that moment pass without reaching for certainty. That's the beginning of surrender, and it leads somewhere unexpected. 5. The mind's fear of the unknown. The mind's job is to protect. It scans the future like a security system, always looking for what might go wrong. But in doing so, it builds a life around fear instead of trust. It tries to predict outcomes, people, and even emotions, and every time it fails, which it always does, it tightens the grip. That's how anxiety is born. Not from uncertainty, but from the refusal to let uncertainty be. He checks his phone 5 times before a meeting, replays conversations, imagines arguments that haven't happened. He's not crazy. He's just trying to prepare himself against the unknown. But it's a losing battle. The future is a moving target, and the more he chases it, the more exhausted he becomes. Like trying to run on a treadmill that's speeding up faster than his legs can go. Ironically, the things he fears most often never happen, and yet they live in his body like they're real. His shoulders tense, his sleep gets lighter, his mood shifts, all because his mind is rehearsing worst-case scenarios on loop. But what if he treated uncertainty like a friend showing him where his resistance lives? What if, instead of fighting it, he let it teach him something? Here's something to try. Next time the fear shows up, don't argue with it. Don't numb it with distractions. Sit still. Put your hand on your chest. Say quietly, "This is just the unknown asking me to trust." Let that become your new ritual, because beyond that fear is a space where self-awareness grows and where inner peace begins to rise. 6. You are not your plans. He thought that if he just made the perfect plan, mapped it all out, followed every step, life would reward him. But the plan fell apart, and when it did, he didn't just lose the plan, he lost himself. That's the danger of over-identifying with control. When you confuse your worth with your ability to predict the future, every curveball feels like a personal failure. But life isn't a machine to be programmed. It's more like a river, unpredictable, flowing, and wild. You can steer, sure, you can paddle, but you're not the current, and when you try to be, it drags you under. Real strength comes from being able to shift, not just from being able to stick to a path. The man who learns to pivot is the man who thrives. Take a business plan, a relationship timeline, a fitness goal. How many times have those things changed? And yet the mind still clings, still insists, this was supposed to go this way. But what if every time a plan collapsed, it was life rerouting you towards something better? What if the failure wasn't a failure, but a redirection? Try this. When something doesn't go as planned, ask yourself, what else is trying to unfold here? Write it down. Reflect. Don't rush to replace the plan. Let the unknown breathe for a moment, because that pause, that space between what you expected and what actually is, that's where surrender lives. And surrender might just know more than your plan ever did. 7. The art of conscious surrender. Surrender has a bad reputation. People think it means giving up, rolling over, or admitting defeat. But conscious surrender is the opposite. It's active, deliberate, and courageous. It means recognizing the limits of control and choosing to flow instead of force. It's the moment a man stops wrestling with life and starts dancing with it. Even if he doesn't know the steps, he's spent years trying to push things into place, relationships, careers, even his emotions. But what he's really been doing is resisting reality, and reality always wins. The harder he pushes, the more exhausted he becomes. Conscious surrender is saying, okay, I see that I'm not in charge of everything, and that's okay. It's choosing peace over pride. This doesn't mean you don't make efforts. It means you don't attach your identity to outcomes. You show up fully, give your best, and then let go. Like planting a seed and not digging it up every day to see if it's growing. Trust doesn't grow in force. It grows in stillness. That's where inner peace starts to take root, right under the soil of surrender. Want to try it? Choose one area of your life where you've been pushing too hard. Write it down. Then for 1 week, stop forcing it. No chasing, no fixing. Just observe and trust. Watch how your body relaxes, how your mind quiets. That's not passivity, that's power. Because the man who surrenders with awareness isn't weak, he's free. 8. Self-reflection without masks. Most men wear masks, not out of dishonesty, but out of habit. They've learned to present the version of themselves that seems most acceptable, strong, capable, always fine. But deep down, something feels off. There's a gap between who they show and who they are. And over time, that gap becomes heavy. The only way to close it is through raw, honest self-reflection. Montaigne didn't sit in his library to feel smart. He sat there to meet himself. Page after page, he wrote not to impress, but to see. He didn't hide his contradictions. He welcomed them. And maybe that's what men today need most. Not more advice, not more improvement plans, but more time to sit down and ask, what's really going on inside me right now? It's not easy to look at yourself without filters. The mind wants to justify, defend, fix. But what if you didn't fix anything for a moment? What if you just watched? That's where self-awareness begins, not in judgment, but in presence. It's in the silence after the noise where the real you gets a chance to speak. And you might be surprised at what he says. Try this. Take 10 minutes tonight. No phone, no noise, just you and a notebook. Write what you actually feel, not what sounds good, not what you think you should feel, just the truth. Do it like Montaigne did, without pretending to know, without needing to fix. That's how a man begins to walk back home to himself. 9. Change is not a threat. He grew up believing that real men are consistent, same values, same beliefs, same version of themselves year after year. But that belief becomes a prison when life demands growth. Because the truth is, everything changes, desires evolve, relationships shift, and clinging to a fixed identity only deepens the suffering when life calls you to become someone new. Montaigne saw change not as chaos, but as nature's rhythm. He changed his mind often and didn't see that as a flaw. He saw it as a sign of being alive. Most men, though, fight change like it's a betrayal. They fear being seen as inconsistent, weak, or confused. But there's a deeper strength in admitting, who I was yesterday no longer fits who I am today. Think about it. How many of your fears are rooted in something changing? Fear of losing someone, fear of losing status, fear of not being who you used to be. But what if change wasn't loss? What if it was expansion? The shedding of one skin so something new can grow. That's not weakness, that's spiritual evolution. That's the real work of awakening. Here's something practical. Review one belief you've held for years. Ask yourself, does this still serve me? If not, let it go. Not with guilt, with gratitude. Say, thank you for getting me this far, and move on. That's how you become a man who flows with life instead of one who fights against it. And what's waiting on the other side of that flexibility? You'll see. 10. The simplicity beyond thought. He always thought peace would come once everything made sense, once the puzzle pieces of life finally clicked into place. But the more he chased clarity, the more confused he felt. The answers never satisfied. The plans never settled his heart. Because real peace isn't found in thinking more, it's found in thinking less. In letting go of the mental noise and remembering what it feels like to just be. The modern world worships complexity. Overthinking is worn like a badge of honor. But Montaigne knew something deeper. He knew that underneath all the questions, all the searching, there's a silence that holds everything. A simplicity not built on solving life, but on surrendering to it. And when a man touches that space, even for a moment, he doesn't want more. He just wants to remain. This doesn't mean he becomes passive or detached. It means he becomes present, fully awake to the moment without needing to explain or define it. He walks differently, listens more, reacts less. And in this presence, life starts to feel less like a problem and more like a mystery, one that doesn't need solving, just experiencing. Want to feel that simplicity. Go for a walk without your phone. No podcast, no goal. Just walk. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice your breath. Watch your thoughts pass like clouds. That's not a productivity hack. That's a doorway. And once you step through it, you'll understand why Montaigne never needed all the answers. He had already found something better.